You know, I always wondered, the United States has the biggest military superpower on earth. Why do other countries try to put fear on us? Like, ooh, we gotta watch out. Can't insult them because they're gonna get us. That it just doesn't feel right. We should be bullying other countries, just like Trump is currently doing, going to war with anybody and everybody. We are the strongest. But let's take a look at Maria Bartiromo talking about all the wars, not all of them, but some of the wars that Trump is putting up against Venezuela. We might be going to war, but who knows? In any case, my name is Noel. Thank you for tuning in. Give the video a thumbs up, and let's get the show going. Let's take a look at Maria Bartiromo with next Sunday. All right, let's take a look.
Good Sunday morning, everyone. Welcome to Sunday Morning Futures. I'm Cheryl Casoni. I'm in for Maria Bartiromo. Today, the president's Peace Through Strength approach takes center stage at Mar-a-Lago. In just a few hours, he meets with Ukrainian President Zelensky. Then tomorrow, with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, as Iran's president says his regime is now in total war with the United States, Israel, and Europe. All this as President Trump takes on narco-terrorists from Venezuela. And as he pressured those dangerous cartels, Russia and China are condemning his strategy.
Drugs are down 96.2% coming into the United States. 92.6 by sea. And soon we'll be starting the same program on land. The land is much easier. But every one of those boats that we knocked out saved 25,000 lives. So we saved 25,000 lives.
You just referenced the lower amount of illegal drugs that are coming by sea, and you just said that you're going to start that same program on land soon. Are you just referring to Venezuela, or are you referring to other countries in Latin America?
Anywhere drugs are pouring in, anywhere, not just Venezuela.
We will size up President Trump's next moves with Senator Mark Wayne Mullen of the Armed Services Committee. Plus, Congress back in session next week with yet another looming shutdown to avoid and a possible vote on health care, with taxpayer subsidies for Obamacare set to expire at the end of the year. But there is less time to legislate in 2026 as both parties go into full midterm campaign mode. We're going to get into it with Congressman Byron Donalds, who's running for governor in Florida. We're also going to talk to Senator Ron Johnson. Plus, President Trump says our economy will strengthen next year as the big, beautiful bill takes effect. Small business is expected to see the impact first. The head of the Small Business Administration, Kelly Loeffler, joins us on her agency's efforts to help Americans prosper. And a special look at Maria's interviews with President Trump during his first year back in office. It is all right here, right now on Sunday Morning Futures. We begin with President Trump dealing directly with two major conflicts. In the Middle East, Iran is now not backing down months after the U.S. and Israel's massive success in taking out Iran's nuclear capabilities. Iran's president saying this weekend his country is now in a, quote, full-fledged war with the United States. Tomorrow, the president will meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on how to deal with Iran and its proxies. But today, President Trump focusing on the war in Ukraine and the 20-point plan for peace with Ukrainian President Zelensky. A major part of that plan is security guarantees. Here's Fox News senior strategic analyst and retired four-star general Jack Keane on America's role.
The United States command and control of a multinational force that has an air, land, and sea component to it, with security forces obviously on the ground inside Ukraine, air power overhead, and also ships in the Black Sea that are making certain that there's no incursions there. This is to enforce a peace deal, and Ukrainians need that to deter Russia from reattacking.
Joining me now in this Sunday Morning Futures exclusive, Oklahoma Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, member of the House Armed Services Committee. Sir, thank you so much for being with us this weekend.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Senator, I want to start with this crucial meeting today between President Zelensky and President Trump. Zelensky, ahead of this, he's made several posts on X. One of the things he says is, We are willing to do whatever it takes to end the war. President Trump giving an exclusive interview Friday to Politico. He says that Zelensky does not have, quote, anything until I approve it. He also says he expects to meet and speak with President Putin. And he references the fact that their economy is weakened in Russia. What can we expect today? What's important?
Well, I think the president and Zelensky has got to get on the same page. It takes two people to agree to a peace deal at this point. It's Putin and Zelensky. However, the person and the only person in the world that can negotiate that is President Trump. And President Trump has made multiple mentions of this publicly and private about that he thought this would be the easiest one to end, and it's turned out to be the hardest. I believe he had to get realization from Zelensky that, it's not likely that Ukraine's going to be made whole. And then he also had to get Putin on the page of saying, do you want peace or do you not? What's happening now is Russia's economy is starting to weaken. They actually grew underneath the Biden administration because, well, the Biden administration turned a blind eye to what Russia was doing. What's happening with President Trump is he's sanctioned their oil. He's continued to go after the countries that's buying their sanctioned oil. We're going after their economy. We're going after the ruble. We're going after things that push pressure on Russia to make them come to the table. Because if it was just about individuals killing, which is what America thinks about, right? We value lives. Russia and Putin, I don't want to say Russia, but Putin doesn't value lives. He just throws people out. He doesn't count numbers. They don't even count those that have died in this war. And so we had to take a different approach. President Trump saw that. He's pivoted. And now his meeting with Zelensky is to say, look, what is it out of the 20 points that you can live with? And what is it is absolutely a nonstop. And I believe this is a good move towards hopefully ending the killing in Ukraine.
Yeah, and what will the securities guarantees be for the Ukrainians and for Zelensky as he tries to end the war? What will Putin agree to? It's going to be a fascinating meeting. I want to move on.
And Cheryl, what I want to know, too, is that the president doesn't want just a ceasefire. He wants to end the war and end future wars that could take place, too. So it's a much different negotiations when you're not just trying to secure a ceasefire, but actually end the war.
I want to move on to these comments we got from Iran's president. This is some pretty strong rhetoric saying that basically he feels that the country of Iran is now at, quote, war with the United States, with Europe. What does that tell you, and how concerned should we be?
Well, it's rhetoric. You have to realize Iran has to have something to say, but they have no ability to back it up. They can say they're at war with the United States. That's great. We know that their reach and their ability to actually deliver on those threats are limited. Now, they still have terrorist organizations around the world because they're the world sponsor of terror. But their financial stability is greatly hurt. Their infrastructure is greatly hurt. They also fear the United States right now because they know that we can reach in and touch them where we're at. I want to point out that President Trump, during the bombing that we were eliminating their nuclear program, the president warned then their leadership saying, look, we know where you're at. We can also take you out in the building, and actually said where they're at, but we're going to choose to leave you alone. That was a very loud warning that went to the leadership. They may be terrorists, but they're not suicidal, not the leadership. And so this is just rhetoric coming out of them with probably nothing to be able to back it up.
Well, and certainly that is a part of the discussions we assume that will happen between Netanyahu and President Trump tomorrow at Mar-a-Lago. And again, bringing in the Israelis into whatever this means for the Gaza Strip and where we go with Hamas. I do want to get to Venezuela with you, though. You've been very vocal about this issue and what's happening in the Caribbean. And one of the things that we're seeing now, in particular, going after these narco-terrorists, is the fact that Venezuela, and this is from a New York Times opinion piece dated 26th of December. Here's what Jimmy Story writes. And I want to read this to you. I think it's really crucial about these moves against Maduro. He says, Venezuela has been commandeered by a group of criminals masquerading as a government. They continue to be run by Maduro and his cronies. This is instability. They're encouraging migration. And of course, these armed groups. They say a free and democratic Venezuela could be a source of stability and economic growth for the entire Western Hemisphere. President Trump has been criticized for going after these narco terrorists and these boats, and of course all the military movements that we have made, and now we have more ships off the coast of Venezuela. Where do you see this going? And obviously, do you back the president in his moves against Maduro?
Absolutely, 100% back the president on this, and that report is correct. Venezuela could be that example that they used to be, a democracy, and what an economy can happen when you actually have free and open elections and allow the people to choose. What's happened is Maduro has taken over the country. He's turned that government into a terrorist organization. He's allowing cartels to flow drugs openly through Venezuela, and is actually using the military and the police there to protect the drugs and the shipyards to what it's being shipped out of. He's using the oil to for not for the people, but for his own personal gain. And so the only way this can actually stabilize is Maduro has to leave. And we know that we put a bounty on Maduro's head, but we've also told Maduro he can leave. He can go to China. He can go to Russia. We'll leave him alone, but he has to leave Venezuela because it has become such a central hub for the drug cartels that they're flooding our streets in the United States. They're killing our friends. They're killing our neighbors. They're poisoning our states. And so the only way we can bring stability in our own country is by leaning into where the source is. And that's what President Trump is doing. That's what peace through strength is all about, is not just sitting and waiting for it to come to us, but taking the fight to them. And so he's done this in Venezuela, and he's also done this by securing our border. And President Trump is trying to restabilize the United States by true leadership, because after 4 years of the failed Biden administration, which allowed criminal activity to flood our streets, President Trump's leaned into it. And look what has happened in just the short 11 months that President Trump has been in office. It has been remarkable what this administration has been able to get accomplished.
Yeah, the border closed, and again, trying to stop the flow of drugs any way means possible into the United States. Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, thank you so much for being with us today. Happy New Year, sir. It's great to see you as always.
Cheryl, Happy New Year to you.
We continued the great tax cuts that help the lower and middle income taxpayers, but especially small businesses that drive the economies in places like my region in upstate New York, where small businesses dominate, and 95% of the people go to work in a small business. They're going to get expensing, lower tax cuts, greater investment.
That's House Ways and Means Committee member Claudia Tenney speaking with me on Maria Bartiromo's Wall Street on the impact of the big, beautiful bill when it takes effect this week. A major focus of the president's signature legislation, helping small businesses. I want to bring in the administrator of the Small Business Administration, Kelly Loeffler. It's so great to see you, Kelly. Thank you so much for being here this weekend.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Let's start with kind of the overall impact that small businesses could indeed see in 2026. Despite we've seen a little bit of weakness in the numbers of small business optimism, the fact is those numbers have been jumping up into the month of December. We've seen that in the polling and in the surveys. But what can the big, beautiful bill do for small businesses in 2026? What is that message?
Well, Cheryl, look, small business optimism is really spiking under President Trump after 4 very difficult years under Joe Biden. Look, small business optimism is above its 52-year average. And according to the U.S. Chamber, in the third quarter, it reached all-time records. And a lot of it thanks to the working families tax cut, that small businesses finally have certainty about what their tax rate is going to be, that 20% pass-through deduction, now the 179 expensing. That means that higher limits on the ability to expense immediately for purchases they make in capital equipment, and also R&D expensing. So I don't think small business owners have ever been so excited to pay their taxes thanks to President Trump. He brought us the blue-collar boom in his first term, and now he's going to add to that the small business boom.
What are the things that you have done just in the last couple of weeks as you went to a GE facility, and your messaging is about deregulation, and that is something that you and your agency actually want to take on in 2026. Talk to us about that, about those onerous federal regulations under the Biden administration. If those can be removed, that can be another way to boost the health of small business.
Absolutely. Regulation is a tax on small business. And under President Trump, in his first year, about $200 billion in regulations have been cut, something like one new regulation for cutting 35 regulations. That means that small businesses aren't going to be mired in red tape. At the SBA, we started a red tape hotline that has been flooded with thousands of calls. And we've worked with everyone from USDA to EPA and energy to make sure that small businesses are able to have relief after 4 very active years of regulating under Joe Biden that heaped trillions of dollars on the backs of small businesses. So we're leading a strike force at the SBA to roll back even more regulations.
Right. Also, too, the big, beautiful bill, those impacts are going to be felt immediately for small businesses, not just in 2026, but these are retroactive to 2025. Talk about that, because that messaging seems to be a bit of an issue for the Republicans right now, messaging how the bill and the act is going to affect these companies.
Well, certainly one of the great parts of the One Big Beautiful Bill is it solves a big problem for small businesses, which is skilled workforce. Now, think about, you're a small business and you're trying to grow, but you can't find enough workers. So when you have no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, that's retroactive back to January 1, you've got people willing to take on more shifts. I've walked factory floors, as you mentioned, talked to workers and said they had been discouraged under the Democrats' tax and spend plan from working more because that would just get taxed away. Now, workers and waitresses, welders, they're going to be able to work more, take more home to their family. And we're already seeing that with the average family taking home $1,000 more in pay in 2025. Under Joe Biden, they destroyed $3,000 per year per family in wages. And so now we have wages growing faster than inflation, and we have GDP at 4.3%. 2 quarters in a row, blowing away economists' estimates. So while economists have been doomcasting on this, small businesses have seen growth. And at the SBA, we've put out a record $45 billion under President Trump because small businesses are growing and they believe in the future.
Mm-hmm. Well, and certainly to get those tax benefits into their pockets, into their accounts sooner rather than later is also going to be, I think, a boost to small business, as you've mentioned. Administrator Kelly Loeffler, thank you so much for being with us this weekend.
Thank you,
it's great
Cheryl.
to speak with you. All right. Happy New Year. We've got a lot more coming up this morning. A look at Maria's face-to-face interviews with President Trump during his historic first year back in office. And as his second year shifts to the midterm elections and avoiding another government shutdown, we've got Florida Congressman and candidate for governor Byron Donalds. A lot of work ahead. He joins us next.
Entienda. As you heard it, United States, the strongest military on earth. Iran talking about going to war with the United States, but you just heard them say they really can't do it. They like to talk just to talk. But at the end of the day, they're not really going to war with the United States. They're just saying that to sound tough, to look tough. But at the end of the day, we have the best military on earth. But what do you think? Comment on below. And Merry Christmas is the last Saturday before the New Year's. Shout out to, what do we have here? Carol Hammett, 9856. Merry Christmas to you too, and Merry Christmas everybody watching. This is the last Sunday, actually. I said Saturday. This is the last Sunday of the year. By Wednesday, I think it's going to be New Year's Eve, and I hope you guys are enjoying your Christmas. Another great news and everything coming forward next year with the big, beautiful bill that's supposed to help out. And everything is supposed to. Let's see if it pans out true. If it comes out, which I think it will. We're living in the best of times. All right, let's take a look at the last segment here of Sunday Morning Future. All right, here we go.
When do you think that the public is going to really feel an impact from your moves to rein in the cost of living? How long will that take?
I think we are going to see a substantial acceleration in the economy in the first, second quarter. And I think we are also, we're already seeing on many prices, as I said, we're bending that curve down, and the increase in real incomes, I think Americans are going to feel it in the first quarter, second quarter. I think 2026, thanks to President Trump's signature plans, is going to be a great year for working Americans, for the markets. I call it parallel prosperity. Main Street and Wall Street can both do great, but I think Main Street's going to have a great year in 2026.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has an optimistic outlook on the 2026 economy when President Trump's big, beautiful bill takes effect. I want to bring in, for a Sunday Morning Future exclusive, a key member of the House Financial Services Committee, Florida Congressman Byron Donalds. He's also running for governor in the state of Florida. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm great. So I want to ask you about this because Republican strategist Karl Rove had an op-ed where he talked about how the Republicans can better message the economy and the strong economy that we expect to see in 2026 and that we have seen in 25. And he says basically that we have to patiently explain, talks about the Republicans, what the Trump administration has done, in particular when it comes to health care in a way that the American people can understand and comprehend, whether it's on the energy side or the health care side. What is that messaging going to look like for you?
A couple of very direct points. Gas prices are down. Energy prices are coming down. Inflation's under control. Wages adjusted for inflation are up and they are rising. That helps people feel more wealthy in the economy today, as opposed to what was happening under Joe Biden when wages were adjusted for inflation were down. People were having more money go out of their pocket and getting less goods and less services. That's not the recipe for success. I think the GDP report that just came out, 4.2 number, well over the estimates. That's going to give the Federal Reserve, I think, more data in order to continue to cut rates, which are going to help people buying their first home or refinancing their current home to then decrease the cost of their borrowing or getting a new car, whatever the case might be. All these different pieces of news and information about the Trump economy is going to let middle-income families, working families in our country realize that they have more purchasing power. When you have more purchasing power, you feel more wealthy. You feel the economy is going in the right direction. Well, that needs to be our message consistently. And then when you get to tax policy, it's really going to open up from there.
And the secretary has talked about that as well, about $1,000 to $2,000 in additional tax refund money going into the pockets of the American people. Healthcare is a big one. Obviously, nothing was done on healthcare before the recess began, the holiday break. One of the things that my colleague Chad Pergram points out about what's happening on the House side of this is the frustration with the party's efforts in general to address the healthcare issue. Those subsidies are set to expire this week. Florida, according to data, would be the hardest hit when it came to the expiration of those subsidies. You're running for governor in the state of Florida. This is obviously an important message for you. What do you want to see happen? Do you support even a one-year extension of these subsidies? What would you support? A health savings account? What would it be? What does this look like? Because the calendar is short for January.
Listen, before you even talk about subsidies, we have to do a complete overhaul of the Affordable Care Act. It's unaffordable for Floridians, unaffordable for every American that's in these exchanges. And why is it unaffordable? It's unaffordable because when the Democrats created this monstrosity, they turned healthcare over to the health insurance companies. The subsidies go directly to the health insurance companies. And then they created all of these mandates and this regulatory leviathan that only increases the cost of healthcare and health insurance. So my position is, let's revamp the entire regulatory framework of the Affordable Care Act. The whole thing that's in there needs to go. The subsidies that go to health insurance companies, those need to go into HSA accounts for the American people. So the American people can use those dollars to purchase health care as opposed to going in direct subsidies to the health insurance companies. I think if you do those two things, you do what the president's been talking about, most favored nation status on drugs. You also bring in stuff that we passed a couple weeks ago in the House, association health plans. So you have small business owners, 1099 employees, they could actually group together, create a larger group so they can actually get get cheaper health insurance. There's ways to do this. But before you start talking about subsidies, we have to fix the underlying problem. It's a problem created by Democrats. Now they're trying to campaign as they're the saviors of it. But subsidies by themselves are not going to solve this problem. Subsidies by themselves are only going to further increase the cost of care, because every time the government subsidizes something, it gets more expensive, not less. So we got to fix it now, and it's on Republicans to do that.
Well, you do have some colleagues in the House that are facing difficult races come November, Congressman Mike Lawler being one of them. So I think getting everybody on the same page is certainly going to be a big piece of the work you're going to be doing when you return to Washington. Congressman Byron Donalds, thank you so much for being here. It's great to see you, sir.
Thank you. Happy New Year, everyone.
Oh, Happy New Year. We've got a lot more coming up this morning. A monumental start to President Trump's second term. Maria spoke with the president throughout his first year back in office on his vision for the country. That is next.
Co.com.
President Trump has kept his promises in his first year back in office, ending 2025 with record low border apprehensions, mostly lower prices, a deregulation and energy revolution, and tax cuts to come, just as he told Maria Bartiromo and our viewers to expect. Maria spoke with the president throughout the year as he explained his vision for a golden age in America, beginning with the interview in March, just over a month after his 2025 inauguration.
We've had a great almost 6 weeks now, and I hope we can continue to go like that. We're at a very rapid pace. We have to make up for a lot of lost time. And the country was very poorly run for 4 years. That you know better than anybody. Nobody covered it better than you, frankly. It's an honor to be with so many great people. We have really great people working with us.
What do you specifically want America to look like in 4 years when you're done?
Well, I want a dynamic country where the private enterprise carries the day, not the government. And I want a strong country militarily. We need that nowadays. You can see that probably better than ever before. So I rebuilt our military. A lot of it was given away to Afghanistan, but it was a lot, but a very small portion, in all fairness. But when you think about the billions and billions of dollars that was just handed over, but I rebuilt it. We're going to be rebuilding it again because we need that. We always need that. But we're doing a series of incentives, tax incentives and other things. The tax bill, I think, is going to be very important. We had record-setting inflation under Biden. It was a killer.
You may get
one of the reasons I won the election.
But you may get it again with these tariffs, right? I mean, one CEO said to me, my input costs have already started to go up. I'm going to have to raise prices.
Interest rates are going down. You know what else is going down? What have I been trying to get down?
Oil.
Energy. Energy's going down. I'd love to see energy go down. You know, energy is really what caused it. They screwed up my energy. I had the most energy, and they screwed it up. What I have to do is build a strong country. You can't really watch the stock market. If you look at China, they have a 100-year perspective. We have a quarter. We go by quarters.
That's true.
And you can't go by that. You have to do what's right. What we're doing is we're building a tremendous foundation for the future, tremendous foundation. There are two ways Iran can be handled, militarily or you make a deal. I'm not sure that everybody agrees with me, but we can make a deal that would be just as good as if you won militarily. But the time is happening now. The time is coming up. Something's going to happen one way or the other. I hope that Iran, and I've written them a letter saying, I hope you're going to negotiate, because if we have to go in militarily, it's going to be a terrible thing for them.
You wrote a letter to the Khomeini,
Yes.
I believe. When did you send the letter?
Yesterday.
And you said you better negotiate, or we want you to
I didn't
negotiate.
say you better. I said,
Okay.
I hope you're going to negotiate, because it's going to be a lot better for Iran. And I think they want to get that letter. The other alternative is we have to do something, because you can't let them have a nuclear weapon.
Mr. President, you were just coming off of one of the most consequential weeks anybody has ever seen, from striking Iran to going to NATO, to announcing 2 deals, and then the Supreme Court victory.
It was pretty wild period of time. And I really think in 6 months, we've taken the country and turned it around.
You went to the Middle East and you strengthened those relationships with all of those countries you just mentioned. Did you have an idea that you would have to do something with regard to Iran?
Well, it was getting a little bit hot, and we knew they had a lot of sites, and probably 3 plus the 1. But they had 3 main sites, and we knew they're going to have to either give them up. And I thought we could do it during negotiation, and we just about had it done. And then they said, we want enrichment. These people flew 36 hours in a small space, a big plane, but a small space that was mostly occupied by bombs. And they flew so brilliantly, and they hit a target the size of this circle. The little target, they say, half the size of a refrigerator door from 50,000 feet up in the air, going at a rapid speed because they're going very fast when they're over a pretty rough territory. And they hit it every single time. And then they knocked out 2 other sites aside from that.
Aren't you going to have to compromise on something around healthcare subsidies to end this thing?
They want to give 1 point. They have a deal. We have a deal. We just want an extension. And the reason we want an extension is because you can't make a deal with these people. They're lunatics. They've gone crazy. They're crazed people. Trump derangement syndrome. There really is that disease. At first, I found it to be amusing. Now I find that it really is. They want $1.5 trillion for health care for illegal aliens that come into our country. If we do that, it will jeopardize the health care of the citizens of our country. So we're not going to do that.
And on China, you've got a lot of economic levers to pull. You've got all those Chinese companies trading on our exchanges.
I have a lot to pull. I don't want to. I'm not looking to destroy China. I'm not looking to destroy China. But, China's taken out trillions of dollars, not hundreds, over the years, trillions of dollars. China has built their military because of us. China has taken out trillions and trillions of dollars. And then I came along my first term, as you know, I took out hundreds of billions of dollars from China. I tariffed China. And Biden left them, except he made so many exceptions, it didn't matter. But I tariffed China. I took in hundreds of billions of dollars from China. And now they forced me to charge them what is the equivalent of 155 to 157%.
It seems like you go so far with China, but you don't sort of use the leverage that you can use. I mean, look.
If I ever had to use it, I'd use it. But when there's no reason to use it, that's good too.
Well, we did just arrest 3 or 4 Chinese nationals who tried to bring a pathogen into the country that gets people sick and destroys food supply. We've got hacking.
You don't know where that came from, though. I mean, did that come from the country, or is that 3 wackos that happened to carry something? You just don't.
Well, there was one that he signed that he would be, one of them signed a paper saying that he would value Mao Zedong's value system. So there was that. And then they hacked into our telecom system. They've been stealing intellectual property. They fentanyl, COVID. I mean, all of this stuff. So how do you negotiate with obviously a bad actor and trust them on economics?
You don't think we do that to them? We do.
So
we do a lot of things.
That's the way the world works?
It's the way the world works. It's a nasty world.
And then you just do a trade deal?
We do. Well, we made a lot of money with this trade deal. I do a trade deal if it works. We made a lot of money with the trade deal.
You think that China is going to stop bullying companies to give them information in terms of in exchange for getting those rare earth minerals now?
Well, the companies shouldn't put themselves in that position. They really shouldn't. Now, I will say this, China right now needs those companies much more than they needed them 2 years ago. 2 years ago, China could do that. Today, they can't.
Mr. President, I just want to ask you about the job cuts from these companies. Some of them are blaming AI. And one CEO told me that AI, artificial intelligence, allows engineers to be at least 25% more productive. It's helpful in contract management. It's helpful in repetitive jobs. It's helpful in data. What can you do to offset the job cuts that will no doubt come as a result of AI efficiency?
One thing, very simple, bring more companies and more jobs. The truth is we don't have enough people to take care of these jobs. So it's like perfect timing. We don't have enough people. My biggest problem is they're coming in and they have to hire thousands and thousands of workers. This is perfect timing. We don't have enough people. And I had an idea. I said, when you build your plant, you're spending billions. You're going to become a utility, an electric utility, and you'll have your approval in 2 weeks. I said, Lee, you're going to approve this stuff fast. Make sure it's safe, make sure it's good, but you have to get it done fast.
Did you get any sense from Putin that he would be willing or open to the idea of ending this war without taking significant property from Ukraine?
Well, he's going to take something. I mean, they fought, and he has a lot of property. I mean, he's won certain property. If you say that, he's won certain property. We're the only nation that goes in and wins a war and then leaves, like we did under President Bush.
Do you expect an expansion of the Abraham Accords?
I hope to see Saudi Arabia go in, and I hope to see others go in. I think when Saudi Arabia goes in, everybody goes in, highly respected. And the Crown Prince, who's also the Prime Minister and the King in waiting, his father's such a wonderful man. He's still healthy and he's still very sharp. But yeah, I think that they're going to all go in very soon.
So they've indicated to you a willingness to do so?
Oh, they have, even as recently as like yesterday.
Final question on the surveillance that has gone on. I mean, we've got reports that Congress collected 30 million lines of phone data during the January 6th investigation. They tapped the phones of 8 sitting lawmakers. What can you do to prevent this kind of surveillance, and how high up the chain did this go?
I think it went right up to the top. And I think it started with Obama, with Comey going up and giving me a briefing in 2016, 2015, the end of 2015 and 2016. And then I said to him, who knows about this? He said, President Obama, his wife, and Joe Biden. They sat in the Oval Office talking about it. But it went all the way through. Obama was involved. Biden was involved, everybody. And then they got this guy, deranged Jack Smith, a lunatic. And they put him in because he was the meanest prosecutor you could find. He was sort of a failed prosecutor because he failed he'd fail because he'd always go too far. And now he really went too far. And we'll see. But you had 8 senators and I guess a couple of congressmen and some other people. But you had, maybe worse than that, you had a House raided of the ex-president of the United States, who actually won the second election by a lot.
Were they looking for that report on Russia collusion?
I heard that they were looking because they thought there was a report bad about them. They thought I had it, which I didn't have. I didn't have anything of any merit. But they were looking, and I also had the Presidential Records Act. I had the right to have all this stuff. I had the right to have it. Only the president has that right. The vice president doesn't have that right, but the president does. But they were looking for they thought I had bad things on them because they knew how bad they were.
Do you expect there will be charges that there was a conspiracy
against you? I don't know about charges. I'm allowed to be involved in this. I'm the chief law enforcement officer of the United States. You know that, right? A lot of people say, oh, he's the president. He should. No, I'm the chief law enforcement. I'm allowed to be involved in it, but I haven't chosen to. I think Pam is doing a very good job. I think Cash is really coming onto his own. It's a field that he's very good at. I think they have some people that are very good. We're going to see what happens.
Obama the other day on a podcast to say that right now democracy is being threatened.
Yeah, I know. He says that all the time. He's the one that threatened it by spying on my campaign. He started it. Obama spied on my campaign, and he did it knowing it was illegal. He knew it was illegal, but he started the whole thing. And there were a lot of dishonest people, and I suspect they'll be caught.
And coming up, the fight to fund the government. One of the Senate's top fiscal hawks, Ron Johnson, is going to join me next.
Today,
the Senate went on Christmas break without passing a government funding package. Congress will be focusing on that issue starting next week. Joining me now in this Sunday Morning Futures exclusive, Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson. Senator, good morning. Thank you so much for being here with us on a holiday weekend. I've got to ask you about this Politico headline. They write these 3 Republican senators are giving John Thune, quote, headaches. You are mentioned along with your colleagues, Rick Scott of Florida and Mike Lee of Utah. They say that these, quote, hardliners have now found a larger pool of allies as the conference's center of gravity slowly shifts to the right. Your reaction to that headline, sir?
Good morning, Cheryl. First of all, don't always believe everything you read in the press. I've got a great relationship with Leader Thune, with Speaker Johnson, with President Trump. We all want the same thing. We'd like to start returning to a reasonable pre-pandemic level spending. We don't want government shutdowns. And I have to point out, I know the Democrats use the extension of the enhanced subsidies as an excuse for the shutdown. The reason that we went to shutdown is because Democrats don't want Republicans to have any success. They don't care what kind of collateral damage they cause by refusing to pass funding laws, to pass a clean continuing resolution. So don't expect Democrats to cooperate here. The thing I was holding out for is let's make sure we pass the Shutdown Fairness Act, which will just pay people, if we do shut down the government, if we're so dysfunctional. So stop using government employees and the American public as pawns in the dysfunction. But again, understand Democrats, they wanted the shutdown. They were responsible for it because they don't want President Trump and Republicans to have success. So if the American economy is collateral damage, they don't care because they just want power. They want to return to power in November.
You've been very clear, and you've written editorials about this. You say, open your eyes about Obamacare. Who's really losing? You say it's the design of Obamacare. That leads me into my question about what we're seeing in Minnesota, this $9 billion fraud in Minnesota, Medicaid and services. Some saying this is just the tip of the iceberg. What can the federal government do to make sure that this never happens again? And is there any way we're ever going to get any of that money back?
Well, first of all, we need to put all kinds of pressure on the state agencies to give us their records. I'm chairman of the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations. This will be a primary focus of ours. We're already reaching out to Nick Shirley and David and other people who can provide testimony for this, but we also need documents. So, these agency heads who funnel the federal money to the state agencies, they have to demand that the state agencies are transparent. And unfortunately, particularly in Democrat-controlled states, they're not. They're refusing to turn over those records. I've got subpoena power. I will use that subpoena power to obtain these records because we have to get to the bottom of this. Understand, Somalis have just been in this country a few years. They're amateurs when it comes to fleecing the federal government. And let's face it, the federal government is probably the easiest consumer, the easiest payer to fleece, and states do it time and time again. So this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Well, Senator, I want to get into the issues with regards to the midterms and the economy. Stay with me. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to be right back with more from Senator Ron Johnson.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Give me a second while I pick up the phone. Hello? Pues voy ahí, me estoy montando en el carro, estoy en la casa. Bye. Okay. Yes, TJ Maxx. So yes, America, the greatest country out there, and the Republican Party is starting to feel like the common sense party. It just makes sense, everything they're doing. All right, restoring the country, giving money back to the taxpayer, and making us great again. MAGA all day. Let me know what you think. Merry Christmas again to Carol Hamil 9856. Hopefully you enjoy your Christmas. With that said, my name is Noel. See you guys on the next video. Peace.